We've spent a few lessons talking about the hidden forces that shape human behavior, things like environment or your genetics or your mindset. But there's also a really critical hidden force that shapes our habits on a daily basis that we haven't discussed yet, and that is feedback. And so I'd like to share a story about why feedback is so important to us from an evolutionary perspective. Now, if you think about the human brain, it's been shaped, at least in its modern form, for about 200,000 years or so. That's when modern humans, anatomically speaking, first came to walk the earth. So if you were to rewind 70 or 100,000 years and pick up a baby from that time, they would be more or less about the same as the baby is today. We're talking about the exact same species and pretty much the exact same computing and brain power. Now, this is important because 100,000 years or 200,000 years is actually quite a long time, and there's been a lot that has changed about our lives in the last 100 to 500 years. The scientific revolution, the rise of cars and airplanes and music and Beyonce and everything in between has all happened in the last 150 or 500 years, really. And so that time span is incredibly small compared to 100,000 years in which your brain has been formed. And the point is that we come into this world with an ancient mind, but we live in a modern space. And that ancient mind is pre-programmed in many ways to respond as if we're still living on the African savanna or in the wild when we're living in an urban jungle now that is far different than where we were raised and evolved in. This means a couple things. So the first is humans evolved in what scientists call an immediate return environment. So if you were on the African savanna, most of your concerns are immediate. If a storm is coming, you seek shelter then. If a lion is chasing you, you run away. If you're hungry, you forage or hunt. And so these immediate concerns were able to be resolved fairly quickly. And our lives were organized mostly around that immediate effect. But in the modern society, humans live in a delayed return environment. Most of the things that we focus on a normal day are delayed. We invest in our retirement, but only see those savings 40 years from now. We go to college so that we can get a job in 5 years. We focus on all kinds of things in our modern life that are delayed in their payoff and return compared to when we invest in them. Unlike hunting for food and then eating an hour later, or seeing a storm and seeking shelter in 5 minutes, we are faced with an immediate return brain that's living in a delayed return society. And what this ends up causing is a lot of uncertainty and stress because we can't resolve those issues. If you watch many animals in their natural environment, they don't seem to face chronic stress the way that humans do. Many animals face some type of, acute or immediate anxiety when they see a predator or when they're running from a storm or they feel some sense of danger. But then after that, they tend to relax and calm down, and they don't, have chronic crippling depression or stress that comes to them day after day, month after month, the way that many humans do in our delayed return modern environment. So what does this mean? Well, one interesting way to look at it is that in an immediate return environment, humans get feedback, we get measurement very quickly. If we're hungry and then we eat an hour later, we get feedback that tells us we no longer need to be hungry. If there's a storm and we seek shelter in 5 minutes, we get feedback that we're safe and we no longer need to be worried. If there's a threat on the plains and we see it and we run away, 10 minutes later we have feedback that we're safe in a tree and we don't need to be worried. But in the modern environment, feedback and measurement can often be delayed in many ways. We save for retirement, but do we know if we're going to have enough money? We look at whether or not we're going to go to a particular school, but do we know if we're going to get that job? And so in many ways, what we need to ease some of this anxiety and stick with the habits and behaviors that do pay off in the long run is to have a better form of feedback, a better form of measurement that leads us to success in the long run. So throughout these next lessons, we're going to talk about measurement, feedback, how they drive our behavior, and how we can use them to keep us on track rather than making us feel uncertain, unsafe, and unaware of what we're dealing with and how we can improve. I'll see you in the next lesson.